Husker Radio Network is on the air. It's time for Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. Also brought to you in part by Midwest Ford and your Midwest Ford dealers. Weeks ago, Nebraska hosted the Michigan Wolverines in their Big Ten opener. After falling behind 10-0 through one quarter, the Huskers began to make some plays in quarter number 2.
Two wide each way. Underwood out of the gun. Marshall, the running back right. Takes the wayside snap. Four-man twisting rush. Underwood under pressure. Ball's loose. It's picked up. Deshaun Singleton was in the area. Beanbags on the turf. They stripped it. Black shirts get it done and get the takeaway. Johnson, right hip of Raiola. Takes the snap. Frontside pressure comes. Lobs one up the seam. It's Barney. He's got it. Touchdown Huskers. 26 yards. With 2:01 to go in the first half, Nebraska point after away from tying this game at 10.
The Wolverines answered that Barney score with a 75-yard TD run of their own on the very next drive. It appeared as though NU would enter halftime trailing by 7, but the Big Red offense had other plans.
Snap to Raiola, rolls right, looks downfield to the numbers. Raiola plants, launches, far right side of the end zone, jump ball. Was it caught? Was it caught?
Unreal.
Touchdown, Huskers! Ja'Cory Barney on a prayer. 52 yards.
A miracle play to even the score halfway through the contest. But Nebraska was unable to build on that momentum in the second half. And Michigan held the Huskers at arm's length to escape Lincoln with a 30-27 victory. There were no moral victories in NU's locker room after the game.
Very self-inflicted wounds. I think the important thing for our football team is, not to say, as I said, not to say it's just one play, not to say it's just, hey, this position group has to play better. I think everybody can play better. So many opportunities to go out and win the football game. And so we have some areas we have to improve upon, and that has to happen now.
Now, the Big Red are coming off a bye week and have a chance to get back in the win column as they host the Michigan State Spartans. And the Huskers are ready to make the most of the opportunity.
Guys are buying in. They bought in, from day one, and now that, our backs are against the wall a little bit, it's more of just like, kill or be killed. That's kind of our mindset going for the rest of the season.
I don't think we're still thinking about the past. I don't think we're thinking about put something, we're not embarrassed of our effort the previous game. Like I said, we just know that there's things we could have done better. And, but I think for us, we're just excited about another opportunity. We're playing at home. I think you look at it, you're like, hey, it's going to be a heck of a football game. We think we also have good players too. And I'm expecting our players to go play really, really, really well. I think they've improved, and we're just going to play it out and see what happens.
Now, here's your host, Ben McLaughlin.
Bye week behind us. Huskers back in action today at home again against the Michigan State Spartans. Glad you've joined us here in this late morning here in the Central Time Zone. Ben McLaughlin, happy to be joined again on our Dakota Mac Husker Game Day show by former Husker national champion Damon Benning. It's always a strange feeling with the bye, Damon coming back and, having the week off. I think after a loss is never fun in particular. But the way that game kind of unfolded with Michigan 2 weeks ago and obviously Michigan State today, never a good time for a bye, but had to deal with it, get through it. It was a great sports weekend to do it, and excited to be back in the chair. And I know the team's really excited to get back on the field, especially with how that game finished up with Michigan.
Yeah, sitting on a bye week with a loss is never good. And I think Nebraska, I love the narrative kind of that Coach Rule wanted to express, and I think kind of how we felt after the football game. And there was this perception that Nebraska kind of got pushed around, and there was a lot of strong opinions and some hot takes. And I think on the rewatch, I was glad to hear him say, they watched 40 to 45 plays and not just the 4 or 5 we think it boiled down to. Because the fact of the matter is in a game like that, there's a lot of things that people could do differently. And So I think from that respect, I think they feel pretty good about where they're at. And I also think they think Michigan's pretty good. And so if you're operating under that thought process, then you're thinking to yourself, okay, we got to do what we can do. We've got good players. We'll get better. We'll use the bye week to evaluate not only scheme but personnel. We'll make a few tweaks, and we'll come out and let this bad boy rip, today against Michigan State. I'm pretty excited, and I know they are.
The bye week was interesting because, one, there was a lot going on around us with sports. And Coach Holgerson talked about this in his press conference early in the week. You had some great football games. You had Major League Baseball in full swing. Obviously, Ryder Cup with golf was happening as well. So it was a good weekend to kind of sit back, as frustrating as it was to not win that game with Michigan. You kind of had a good recalibration and kind of center yourself again, because I think you look at, the next handful of games, Damon, and Nebraska has to feel good about what's in front of them. For as disappointed as you are that you didn't meet the moment with a win against Michigan, I think Dylan kind of set the tone with his press conference right after the game to say, all right, well, the season's going to go on. This isn't the end of a season. We still got a whole bunch more games to go play.
Yeah, and I think we'll get past the point where every game has to be a referendum, right? That was the next big hurdle. Today we'll see how Nebraska responds. Then there'll be another referendum, and you can already hear it when they get on the plane to go to Maryland. Maryland's got Washington today. That'll be another referendum game. It's just kind of how it goes with this team during this stretch of Nebraska football until they get what we think is the signature victory, because clearly we're waiting on something. We're not gauging progress, really, because I think that's easy to see. We apparently must be waiting on some magic moment to let us know that we've arrived. But I think the players have to understand you can't fast forward, and you can only take on the opponent that you're playing that week.
Yeah, and I think, too, you've got the leadership in charge of the team, both from the coaches and the player standpoint. I was really encouraged hearing from some of the players, particularly the quarterback, DR15 after the game 2 weeks ago, to have the right mentality and mindset coming into the bye week. And I know it was a really relaxing weekend for some, but Damon, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't just take a moment and remember a big part to Nebraska, the Husker football community, and part to our Husker family and the Omaha community as well. And I know a good buddy of yours is no longer with us, and just some devastating news with Matt Bersel passing away. But I think if I've learned anything over the last year and a half with everything that we've been through at this network, losing a football game in the grand scheme of things and not beating a ranked team kind of pales into comparison to, the opportunity that you and I get to have to come do this and be around each other and watch college football on Saturdays together.
Yeah, I think perspective is always important. And, being, easily one of my best friends and kind of that go-to guy, I think there's some good in it too, where I know he would say things like, just keep fighting the good fight. And he was always so competitive, and I could just hear him telling me how upset he would be that I was upset, or, that I had missed a couple of days of work or whatever. So, and I think along those lines, a lot of that came from him being at this university, what he learned back in Grand Island, I think he wants this team to instill, and kind of their thought process is like, you just got to take a licking and keep on ticking. And he was like the ultimate Timex guy, always competitive, always looking for the next challenge, never was too down in his feelings, just uber competitive. And I think those are a couple of the things that I've always appreciated about him, just how he would attack, always be on attack mode, just didn't let life sit and dictate terms. And so I think that's one of those things, ironically, that you'd like to see today embodied, is you don't let the environment dictate this team's behavior. You've got goals, you've got a culture, you've got things that you want to accomplish. Don't let last week or yesterday or the day before that dictate how you move forward. And I think that's what Coach Rule and his football team is after when Michigan State takes the field today.
And I think it kind of I kind of want to transition from Dylan to that because that's what makes these locker rooms so special. You know, in 20, 30, 40 100%. Years from now, they're not thinking about trying to win 8 games or trying to be ranked or get the monkey off your back against a ranked opponent or anything like that. What you remember is the relationships you've had with people. You know, you were lucky enough to play in a lot of locker rooms. I'm lucky enough to be around it, with Nebraska baseball and see, guys get married and have kids, and some are lucky enough to keep playing. But that's the stuff that you remember and appreciate, and that is kind of a bigger life lesson. And I think you've got a guy in charge of this program that kind of understands the bigger picture. Yeah. And with Dylan, even just this week, talking about giving back to the community, some of those moments that, we all want the team to do well. We want them to be successful, and we want them to, get back to where we all want it to be. But at the end of the day, there's bigger things at play here. And it makes me feel good knowing that Nebraska is still about a lot of those things.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because even when you talk to him off to the side or, you get him in press conferences, you can hear a lot of that mindset in him, like, okay, what's the next challenge? Like, we don't sit around. He literally told, hey, listen, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody cares about your feelings. We've got an opportunity and we've got a job to do. Don't let that dictate how we're approaching this thing. And he finds a different way to say it almost every time he takes the podium. He's like the consummate competitor. That's absolutely what he wants his team to see today.
You talk about competitiveness, and you have to have that killer in you to play at this level. You just do. Otherwise, it's not going to go well. That being said, I said the word recalibration a while back. How important is that, Damon, no matter where your bye week falls? I mean, there's been years where Nebraska hasn't had a bye week until November. Yeah. There's been years where they've had it, the second week of the season. But you have to take it when it's given to you, because going all the way back to fall camp, as Dylan said this week, you have to have that time to center yourself for what's ahead.
Absolutely, right. They got after it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Used Friday as kind of a rest/recovery day. They had mandatory recovery on Sunday as they came back to the facility to start to get the week, the preparation in for Michigan State. And it's important. Balance is always important, right? And I think these guys being disciplined enough to take care of their body, yet understand that taste, it's not morning breath. That's the loss last time you laced them up and were at home. So as you're trying to get up and attack the next day and get that taste out of your mouth, those are the things that keep you dialed on the day-to-day regimen.
Yeah, and I think, too, when I think of a bye week, everybody kind of does their own routine mentally. Coach Holgerson admitted, I didn't really want to do anything except sit on my couch. I think a lot of us felt that way, but there are other people that, I know the quarterback was spending time with family, but you better believe he was on his iPad, when he wasn't having that family time, to kind of go through. But from a coach's perspective, Damon, put your player helmet aside, but put your coaching hat on for us. What is a realistic expectation or goal of a coach? Because we heard, even to go back to Coach Holgerson, talking about, the challenge you had with Michigan State and, try to re-scheme some things or get creative. I think a lot of times it's self-reflection, but at the same time, you have to be forward-thinking in what you're doing to set yourself up for success later on. What is a realistic expectation from a coaching standpoint on what you can do in a bye week's time?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I think the first couple of days it is about self-eval, right? Sequential play calling, successful plays versus not successful plays, the check with me's versus things that were called when you sent them through the earpiece, the green dot guy, i.e., DR15 or even defensively for Coach Butler. So you'll go through that process. Then it's the very next thing is, how is it applicable to what we want to do going forward? So you kind of map that out. Okay, we didn't like this. We like this. Let's try this. And the third phase of that, and you'll see some wrinkles today in terms of personnel, is, all right, as we get back out to the practice field, who gives us the best chance to execute this vision, right? And so you kind of go in that process. It's like, what did we do? And then it's, why did we do it, and what do we want to do next? And then who are we going to do it with? And I think those are the ways that you attack the bye week. And I think that's one thing that you'll be able to see right away is you can always look at personnel and see how the bye week went. If there are changes, if there aren't changes, you'll get a pretty good idea easily before you look at play sequence.
What that old saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. Well, we got stuck on the right number, you and I, last week. There was a lot that happened that we kind of thought we might
that was incredible.
Or come into play.
Yeah.
And I think the first big one to me was red zone. And I know the coaches are frustrated. Dylan made a comment this week about it. How much of that time do you think went into what are we doing inside the 20 to go get sevens instead of threes, or making sure that we're in a spot to at least kick field goals, and knowing that pretty much every game from here on out could be a one-score game?
Yeah, I don't have any problems with, I know this is a hot take, but I didn't have any problems with not taking the three early. It fits the mantra. It fits how they want to play. They want to be aggressive. I think, and the players didn't mind that, right? And so you can always go back and revisit that as a coaching staff, but it has to fit within how you told your team you want to play. That's always the thing. Now, I wasn't in love with the analytics part of the answer, because sometimes the analytics tell you to do something and it doesn't factor in emotion, and it also doesn't factor in Nebraska hasn't been good in third and fourth and short. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that the analytics probably didn't tell Nebraska about taking the three versus not, is, okay, well, what do we do well? So I think part of the bye week for them is when that field is constricted and I'm in one-back run game, I clearly have to be able to run the ball somehow. How and what does that look like once we get in the red zone? I bet you that was a good 20 to 25% of what this offense was looking at this week is red zone efficiency and how they can move the ball on the ground.
And I know Coach Holgerson was spending a lot of time on red zone, and I think that was his parting words to the media was, I can't wait to go out and practice the red zone. But let's just stick on the offensive side of the ball for a second. When you're Coach Holgerson and maybe things haven't gone as well, obviously you're going to look on what you've done that didn't work, but how exciting is it to have that time, whether you're on your couch watching Bama, Georgia, or whatever, and just thinking of things, and with the personnel involved, who's been playing well, who do you like in this certain situation? He talked about, potentially seeing a lot of man in red zone today. Okay, so now what can I draw up schematically that's going to give us a good advantage? From the coaching standpoint, conceptualizing it and then getting to go try it on the practice field. I mean, that's got to be the fun part, right? That's why he chose to come back here.
Absolutely. And I think to both OC and DC, that's part of it, right? Getting tendencies, understanding strengths and weaknesses. And, if he's right about seeing some man-to-man, okay, how does motion help me get to where I want to be in the run game, right? Where I know what I think I'm getting from a coverage standpoint, but how does that affect how they fit in the run game? And you have a really good sounding board across the hallway from you because you've got a defensive coordinator that likes to play a lot of man-to-man in the red zone. And you can have those conversations about, hey, what gives you fits, right? What do you guys least like to see? And so the back and forth and bouncing ideas schematically, I think, is something that most coordinators really, really enjoy.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I think all of us, again, watching what else is happening around the world of college football, the sense that I got that a lot of our team was doing that as well. But I think, moving forward, the excitement to get back on the field rang true. And by middle of this week, it seemed very matter of fact, like business-like. Hearing Coach Rule talk on Thursday, not a lot of fluff, not a lot of filibustering. It was straight to the point. Like, you could get the sense that the sand was ticking away at the hourglass. They're ready to play football again.
Yeah, how about the brevity? I mean, they didn't stay behind the mic for a whole long time telling a bunch of war stories about the good old days. I mean, they got to the point. It was concise. It was direct. And I like the story. He had some good responses, I felt like, Coach Rule this week. My favorite is listen, we're not apologizing. We're not embarrassed about how we played against Michigan. I don't know what the get something on tape is. We have another Big Ten opponent. We want to play football. We're not embarrassed about the effort we put up against Michigan. We're trying to get better for Michigan State. That let me know right there There was going to be no leading question. They were dialed, and they understand the task at hand.
Yeah, and we'll get into a little bit of Michigan next week, because I think that was, at least what I noticed, a lot of big statements, a lot of big characterizations, a lot of big final conclusions on what Nebraska was last week. To kind of go back and watch it, especially, of course you're going to watch the big splash plays that Michigan made, and like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more in our next segment. But would the old cliche, right? Never as good as you think it is, never as bad as you think it is. But hard to find a game that's more applicable than 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, there were so many things you'd like to go back and do differently, and one of the things I think you talked about that was really, really interesting was the physicality that Michigan played with coming out of the secondary. Not necessarily across the board, but, I mean, they had some guys that got down into the box and laid some lumber. And, looking at the stats, the 40 solo tackles out of 76 total plays, that's incredible. That's too many one-on-ones where they're getting your guys to the ground. And so as a player, you're never really going to concede, oh, hey, that guy's just better than me or this, that, and the other. It's like, let's get back out here in space. Let's get these one-on-ones back like you want to run it back. And I think that was a lot of the competitive spirit that we were seeing in practice the last 8 days. Yeah,
it's going to be fun to kind of see how Nebraska answers the dinner bell to pull a DB saying out today with the response with Michigan State, because I think, if there's anything that Coach Holgerson wants today, especially with what we're expecting with the wind, getting guys in space in one-on-one situations is
they got to win those.
It could determine the game ultimately today. So I think a potential chance for redemption in that regard for the Huskers today. Headed to just after a 3:00 kick here in the Central Time Zone. Huskers and Spartans. We also have some games that we're already keeping an eye on around the world of college football. We'll hear from Matt Coatney a little later on with a full scoreboard around the world of college football. I think a lot of Husker fans have turned into quasi-Cincinnati Bearcat fans after the game at Arrowhead, and a lot of attention being paid to their matchup with Iowa State. Your point, we got
10-0
Josh's
Bearcats
head's in the way, so I can't see.
10-0 Cincy.
Wow, early. So a lot of people picking Iowa State on the College Game Day set.
Yeah, how about the injuries though for the Cyclones?
Yeah.
Right? Football, it's a tough sport, man. That's why schedule prediction and looking at you just never know who's going to be available.
Baltimore Ravens. I mean,
how about that division as a whole? As a Steelers fan, I'm never cheering for injuries, but all of a sudden I'm like, this looks a lot better than I thought in preseason.
You guys got to have a lot of confidence in the guy.
How is Aaron Rodgers could potentially be the only healthy quarterback going into Week 5? That doesn't even sound right, does it?
I'm sure he's got some scientific theory about why that's the case.
Hey, he thought of it in the dark, don't you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we better take a break before we get too off the rails with the Aaron Rodgers chatter, banter here late this morning. The Dakota Mac Husker Game Day Show covering Husker Nation and beyond. Call on Dakota Mac to discuss all your ag financing needs. Learn more at dakotamac.com. Damon and I will peel back some of the onion of what we saw with Michigan a couple of weeks ago as we get set for the Huskers and the Spartans today. Stay with us.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Preparation is the key to success on game day. And like your favorite Huskers on the field, you need to be ready right from the opening kickoff. Cenex has your pregame routine covered. We've got your salty snacks, your sweet treats, ice-cold beverages to wash them down, and fresh tanks of propane to fire up the grill. Fuel your fandom at your local Cenex station. Husker Pride, powered locally.
Farming is hard work. Between managing crops, livestock, and equipment, there's not much time left to handle financing and loans. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a full-time farmer, an investor, or a young and beginning farmer, we're here for you for all your ag lending needs. Let Dakota Mac help you work smarter, not harder.
Hi, it's Boyd Minnery from Dakota Mac. Call me at 402-463-4637. Learn how Dakota Mac products can work for you.
This is Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. You're listening to Big Red Football.
From Omaha to Ogallala, Nebraska is 2 million Huskers strong. And Medica has health plans to cover them all. From the farmer with a growing family to the barista at the corner coffee shop to the grandpa who gets his grandkids off to school. No matter where you are in life, we have health plans to meet your needs. We got your back. With Medica, you're not just covered, you're cared for. Find out more at Medica.com. That's Medica.com.
We got your back. In Nebraska, the good life means mornings that wait for you, a porch swing, or a skyline view, work that matters, and time that's yours. Neighbors who wave, hey there. Stars you can almost touch, a mortgage that makes sense, more space, more time, more life. Nebraska, the good life is calling. Are you ready to answer? Learn more about living in Nebraska at www.thegoodlifeiscalling.com.
It's not a job. I don't start my day by logging in or end my shift by punching out. I don't have a corner office, but I do have a seat with a view. I get to see every sunrise and every sunset. And while I may technically be my own boss, I fully accept that I am not in charge. I'm a Nebraska corn farmer, and there's nothing else I would rather be.
Brought to you by the Nebraska Corn Board.
Set, hike. When champions take the field, they come ready to play. TNL Irrigation understands the value of momentum. Like a Husker drive, there's no stopping. If you live for farming and football like we do, TNL Irrigation has you covered. Check your fields from the game with a remote system, or just enjoy the play, knowing our systems are reliable as a sold-out Memorial Stadium. Touchdown! Nebraska born, Nebraska strong. Husker Nation and TNL Irrigation are like no other.
Want to boost Nebraska's economy and help the planet? It's as easy as filling up your tank. Switch to soy-based biodiesel to cut greenhouse gases by up to 74% and support biodiesel growth.
I'm Greg Anderson, a farmer near Newman Grove, Nebraska, and biodiesel has transformed our farm. It cuts emissions, raises the cetane number, and improves fuel lubricity.
So ask for biodiesel where you fill up. It benefits our air, economy, and Nebraska soybean farmers. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
Here, fall means two things, harvest and football. Just like Nebraska, you run on something powerful. Diesel for your farm, gas in your tank, or propane heating your home. Sap Bros keeps your farm and family fueled. We're kicking off with a Big Red giveaway. Enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits when you contract fuel with Sap Bros. And when Nebraska wins, you win. Score a free king-size Reese's in the Sap app, whether you're hauling harvest or headed to the game. Sap Bros fuels Nebraska.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Hey, Husker fans, some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Visit allstate.com or call a local agent for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Welcome back to Dakota Mac Husker Game Day Show. Ben McLaughlin, Damon Benning. Okay, DB, I know anytime the Huskers lose a game, people immediately go to the analysis by their eyeballs for what they saw in 60 minutes worth of football. Usually it's 2, 3, or 4 moments or specific plays in that game. The Michigan game was certainly no different than that. Oh. I was really kind of bracing for impact on the rewatch because I think what I had in my mind with what I was going to see and what actually happened, maybe not quite aligning. But for you, before I kind of get into my thoughts, what did you think, or what was 1 or 2 things that you either thought you were going to see and were surprised by, or what was confirmed on the more you would watch?
So I guess I didn't realize, and we try to talk about it real time, but I thought Michigan strung together a few more third downs in a row. Now, the 3 were big. Don't get me wrong. You start out 1 of 8, you finish 4 of 12. Those were big third downs. But it seemed like the bulk of the work was done on that one drive. So then I go back and I look at, okay, where are they fitting in the run game? Are they getting removed from the line of scrimmage? And, man, I just couldn't get over the fact how Nebraska wasn't getting guys to the ground one-on-one, right, when you have the opportunities to make plays. So I go back and I look at scheme. I'm like, okay, did I like the way they did this, or what was the call here? And it wasn't near as bad as I thought. I also, B-Mac, didn't realize that Nebraska was so successful both offensively and defensively on first and second down. Like they were winning the efficiency battle with 4 more yards on first down as an offense and giving up 3 or less on defense, where you're putting your opponent in third and longs and Nebraska's getting third and shorts. So I was a little taken aback by that Nebraska had a little bit better control on first and second down on both sides of the ball than they did.
I think a lot of people, Damon, will look at the stat sheet, or they'll say, well, we always said coming into that game, if Nebraska didn't stop the run, they were going to lose. And you and I on this show said, well, the way Michigan's rushing attack has burned a lot of people was exactly what happened. I had told somebody before the game, I think Nebraska could survive 1 turnover offensively and 1 big play on the ground for Michigan. Yeah. Unfortunately, we met our quota on both of those, but the big runs surpassed what Nebraska was able to allow to win that game. But I think when you go to, okay, how did those big runs happen? That's the concern from
there were 3 different ways that it did happen.
And that's what I was going to ask you is this something you talk all the time about, run fits? Where is your safeties coming down? Are your linebackers in the right spot? Are you making your one-on-one tackles? Are you in the right spot, or should Nebraska be, thinking about a different scheme or putting guys in different spots to help that? What did you see when you were dissecting those plays?
Yeah, so the first quarterback run was just a good play call. Numbers in the box. I think that's one Nebraska definitely wants back, right? They wanted to, Michigan motioned out to empty. Nebraska had 2, go with 1. You vacate the middle. You probably want to go back and play that with a deep hole safety, right? They got, right? We did the exact same thing to Florida in the bowl game. T. Frey scored on a quarterback trap. That thing parted like the Red Sea. You want to go back and get that call. The long run that Justice Haynes had there was a couple things. Number 1, you got to finish your D-line stunt. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're Shavers, you have to take on that puller. You have half man, limit the 2-way go. He kind of ducks under, and it's a 2-way go for Buford. So people will say, Buford took a poor angle. And the angle wasn't great, but you can't give a good back like that a 2-way go either, right? So if D-line does what they're supposed to do and Shavers fits that how he's capable of fitting it, we might be saying some different things about Buford this week, who I think was coming off a tough film watch. So getting there and playing good defense with run fits is all about trust. Do I trust each level in front of me as I go to make my run fit? The third one, Nebraska was outnumbered by 1 to the weak side, where I think Michigan broke a little tendency. Javen Wright and both your insides have to really box that thing. They've got to squeeze it, and both were a little slow to go between Trent and Javen Wright. Guthrie is in a man fit. He gets his head on the wrong side trying to come down into the box, and you leave just a little enough crease for a good back, 2 good backs in essence, to go put in work. So while the 2 long runs by the running backs schematically are similar, Michigan got to it 2 different ways. So I think for Nebraska, you can't throw them out, but you do know, okay, that's a teachable moment.
Let's football 101 this a little bit, because this isn't going to be the last time you and I talk about this. You said 2 things right there that are going to probably matter from here on out. The first one was being a man short, and making sure. And people will hear us say alignment and an assignment all the time. But when somebody who maybe doesn't know what a man short means, what does that mean?
So Michigan went to the boundary, to the short side of the field, and they motion back to it with a blocker. So Nebraska's got to move with the motion, because their pre-snap, so before the ball snapped, their pre-snap look was, okay, Michigan's got all this space to the field. They've got us outnumbered here. Let's readjust. Well, Michigan comes back before the snap with motion. They get +1 in the run game, and there's a crease. So I think if Nebraska sees that again on film, they have to move with the motion and understand that even though Michigan is to the boundary, they did break tendency, what they normally do with that weak side run game. And I'm not going to go as far as to say Nebraska was misaligned, but I do think conceptually they would move with the motion differently.
That's another thing I wanted to talk about. My wife actually, of all people, asked this question during a Chiefs game. And she asked it away, does one player
go
run
back and forth?
Yes. And so I tried to explain motion, what that is.
Yeah.
And really, the simplest way I could explain it was it creates an advantage for the offense in some way, shape, or form. But I think it does it in a million different ways. Explain to our audience, Damon, why offensive coaches rely on motion so much, not just on pass plays, but on run plays to get to exactly what you're saying, to create either a numbers advantage or a personnel advantage in a specific play.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think you're going to see it today with Nebraska and Michigan State if Michigan State does, in fact, play so much man-to-man in the run game. And with motion, we like to say, my man, my fit, where if I'm playing man-to-man and I've got to move beyond the move with where my guys are offensively, it changes where my eyes go. So quarterbacks put guys in motion not just to dictate pass coverage, but to get you out of run fits too. Like if you're constantly chasing, then sometimes you can lose what we call leverage. And it's like the game within the game. Sometimes, and Nebraska plays so much man-to-man defensively, you see a lot of the same things used against them. If you really want to see how motion was used in the run game, you go back to early 2011s with 2016s, how Wisconsin would jet and motion Nebraska to death.
I was going to say, do we really want to call
in the
attention
run
to
game,
that?
whether it was with sweeps
Yeah.
or, infamous Melvin Gordon type stuff where because Nebraska played it a certain way, they would get out leverage. So motion tells you a lot of things, and it's not just about the pass game.
100%. And then the last thing that you said there in your first answer, that's really, really important when it comes to just kind of understanding football X's and O's. And it goes hand in hand with exactly what we were talking about in the first segment about Coach Dana Holgerson and the red zone, creating schematic advantages. And that's the words that every coach hates to hear, and break tendency, right? Because when you're dissecting film, you're trying to look for the answers to the test.
Yep.
Well, turns out the people
they got a dry erase board
test,
too, right?
Exactly. So when you say break tendency, and you said the game within the game, it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
But what is the nuance to that part of break tendency, and how you have to be careful about what you install during the week for that test that you have on Saturdays?
Yeah, well, you're on it today. You don't want to chase ghosts, right? You don't want to envision and see things that they haven't shown you, but you always want to be prepared, right? So there's like this fine line. A lot of times you'll see coaches do this. They'll put stuff on tape and they'll do it once or twice. And you won't see it again because any amount of time you spend preparing for it is something that you otherwise
and
won't
a very
be.
finite number of minutes that you have during a week.
They do it all the time. And so I think what coaches try to do is they run these reports with all their film study and they get tendencies. Hey, in two back sets, when they're on the hash, they do this. In red zone, they like to do this. And, when they're in this formation, these are the plays. Like you can just generate all these reports, right? So what coordinators like to do is they get tendencies. Hey, every time this team, they start off their first red zone play with a run, right? So if you're doing that 80% of the time or 85% of the time or 90% of the time, teams will play you a certain way. So when Coach Holgerson says things like, hey, Michigan State loves to play man-to-man in the red zone, they know, and Michigan State knows as a defense, listen, the closer these guys get, the less room we want to give them to operate. Well, if that's the case, then is Nebraska, if they want to throw it, is it rub routes? Is it speed motion? Is it going tempo? Is it a lot of motion to get teams confused so their eyes are in the backfield, which is where you don't want them if you're playing man-to-man? Those types of things are always fascinating to watch. And see Nebraska watch Nebraska, see if they play with a little more tempo BMAC when they're in the red zone to kind of do more of the dictating of the coverage.
Okay, so now time for some practical application, because now we're rolling a little bit. It has my wheels churning, and I thought this was brilliant from Coach Holgerson 2 weeks ago. So we just talked about breaking tendency or coaches putting things on film. How about when Nebraska lines up with Mosey to the left and with the Mackay to the right, and now you've got 6 or 7 different things that Nebraska's already done out of that one formation that Michigan State's going to have to watch and prepare for today.
I love it. I think the 2-back run game is really going to come to fruition today. I do. Whether it's in the red zone or outside the red zone in the normal field of play. I think because when you're in the shotgun without a mobile quarterback, you need another downhill running option. And so adding another running back who is also a good pass catcher doesn't limit the looks or the versatility you have. For me, today, that is absolutely one of the games within the game, is the amount of backs Nebraska puts in the backfield that can be recipients of the football before the ball is snapped.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
That's kind of how it goes.
I hope I'm not alone in saying that. Hopefully somebody out there learned something in the last 15 minutes. Coaches make substitutions during the game to get the best player on the field. Getting behind the wheel after drinking also demands a substitution. Sober drivers are the only choice. Impaired driving is deceptively dangerous. From the NDOT Highway Safety Office, let's get our first feel of the traffic in and around Memorial Stadium. And our first report with Trooper Brett.
Good morning, Husker Nation, and welcome back after the bye week. Traffic is starting to build, but is flowing normally towards Memorial Stadium as fans head to today's game against Sparty. Keep an eye out for a vehicle on the shoulder near mile marker 410 on I-80 westbound. That is near the Highway 6 exit. Troopers are also en route to assist a motorist near mile marker 382 on I-80 eastbound. If you're driving into Lincoln from the west, consider taking Highway 77 southbound to Rosa Parks Way. A great defense prevents touchdowns on the field. Wearing your seatbelt prevents tragedies on the road. Be sure to buckle up every time. I'm Trooper Brett with the Nebraska State Patrol on the Huskers Radio Network. This traffic report is brought to you by the NDOT.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Tackle the toughest tasks on your farm with Brand Agricultural Products. They've got a complete lineup of grain handling and tillage equipment to take you from the preseason all the way to the playoffs or harvest. All their ag equipment is North American built and backed by an extensive network of dealerships that provide support over the long run. Lead the field with Brand Agricultural Products. Visit Brand.ca for more.
This is Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. You're listening to Big Red Football.
Farming is hard work. Between managing crops, livestock, and equipment, there's not much time left to handle financing and loans. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a full-time farmer, an investor, or a young and beginning farmer, we're here for you for all your ag lending needs. Let Dakota Mac help you work smarter, not harder.
Hi, it's Boyd Minray from Dakota Mac. Call me at 402-463-4637 to learn how Dakota Mac products can work for you.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles. Or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
The work is dirty and sometimes dangerous. It's the kind that can break your body, and if you let it, your spirit. But while there may be better ways to make a living, you won't convince me there's a better way to live. I'm a Nebraska corn farmer, and there's nothing else I would rather be.
Brought to you by the Nebraska Corn Board.
Set, hike. When champions take the field, they come ready to play. TNL Irrigation understands the value of momentum. Like a Husker drive, there's no stopping. If you live for farming and football like we do, TNL Irrigation has you covered. Check your fields from the game with a remote system, or just enjoy the play, knowing our systems are reliable as a sold-out Memorial Stadium. Touchdown! Nebraska born, Nebraska strong. Husker Nation and TNL Irrigation are like no other.
For farmers, sustainability is a way of life. 97% of farms are family-owned, and 95% are participating in conservation programs and using sustainable practices.
I'm Ann Meese, a farmer near Elgin, Nebraska. I grew up on this land, and we're dedicated to being good stewards and leaving it better for the next generation.
Since 1980, U.S. soybean farmers have boosted production by 130%, all while lowering emissions and improving land and water use. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
Tackle the toughest tasks on your farm with Brand Agricultural Products. They've got a complete lineup of grain handling and tillage equipment to take you from the preseason all the way to the playoffs or harvest. All their ag equipment is North American built and backed by an extensive network of dealerships that provide support over the long run. Lead the field with Brand Agricultural Products. Visit Brand.ca for more.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Welcome into this week's Cornhusker Conversation presented by Woodhouse. I'm Jessica Cootie and excited to be joined by the junior defensive back, Andrew Marshall. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You guys are playing some pretty good pass defense. How's it felt so far, this start to the season, and how you're settling in?
It's felt good. I'd say, overall, it's felt good. There's little things that we need to work on, but, as overall, like a defense, we feel like we're in a good position, It's not a lot of things that we need to work and fix. So, just pinpointing those one or two things that we need to fix and getting that done, we feel like we're in a great position.
I know you guys were disappointed coming off the loss to Michigan, but how was the bye week? What was the focus of the bye week?
Just getting better, one day at a time. We feel like bye week was that's like the most important time, really. That first practice coming off, that's like the difference maker between, getting better or not. And so I feel like we did well preparing during the bye week, and we really took advantage of it.
When you turn on the film, what were some of the things, we've got to be better in these areas to be the defense we want to be?
Just playing with more tenacity as a defense as a whole, just from the front to the secondary, running to the ball, securing tackles was a big thing, stopping the run, just everything. But, as a defense, we just got to play just harder, really. Just play harder, play faster.
You guys have made it very, very, very hard for opposing offenses to throw the ball against. Why is that? Why has this secondary been such a challenge for teams to try to go in the air against?
I just think it's a standard that we hold for ourselves. We talk about it as a secondary, we're going to be the best, position group on the field. So whenever we take the field, it's a mindset. It's not it's something that has to happen. We have to be the best on the field. So that's just something that we keep in the front of our mind when we play.
What's it like playing, the opposite corner of Sierra Wright? You two guys seem to be really feeding off of each other.
It's dope. Just able. He moves around too, so I'm able to bounce ideas off of him. We talk on and off the field. So it's great. We communicate just on and off the field. It makes it easy to work with him on the field.
How has it been different at all? I mean, I know you had a lot of confidence. You knew you could play at this level, but has there been anything different or that you've learned here through 4 games of the season with Nebraska?
Definitely. For me, I'd probably say just schematically, the schemes we do, the different type of coverages and disguises, and just the fronts we run. Just digging deeper into football, that's been a bigger thing for me since getting here. Just understanding football on another level, which allows me to play faster.
How about there's a lot of guys that played a lot of football together there in that defensive backs room. How has it been fitting in with those guys, the Marquise Buford, Deshaun Singleton, Malcolm Hartzog? What's it been like getting in with those guys and building the bonds with those guys?
It's been dope. I'd probably say we got the most personality on the team. DB's definitely got the most personality. So, practice, you gonna see us, you gonna hear us. We bring that energy, and it's always fun. It's always simple talking through film because, we all love football. So just getting things corrected is easy. Just checks is easy. So it's been a great time.
So the DBs have the best personality. Who's number 2 then? I would probably say the wide receivers might argue with you on that.
I can't. I'll probably say that. Probably that's a good question. 2, I'll probably say, linebackers or receivers.
Okay. How about Addison Williams? How has he been? What has he done for your game?
He's helped me a lot. Just nitpicking at my game. Helping me focusing on just taking one step at a time, focusing on one thing at a time. He's able to see things that I might not see, and he bounces it off to me, so I can allow me to focus on that. So he's been a very big help for me.
So you weren't always a defensive back. As good as you are at the position, it wasn't your first. You were actually a wide receiver first, right?
Yeah, I did play receiver.
You were set on being a wide receiver, right?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a receiver. It didn't pan out, but it didn't pan out for the best, really. I think it just put me in a better position. My junior year, I thought I was going to be a receiver. So I went into the season thinking I was going to be a receiver. My DB coach at the time, he played here, Josh Mitchell. He told me, he's like, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. You're going to be DB, bro. And, at first, I wasn't really trying to hear that. I waved him off. But, as the time progressed through the season and, I started playing DB, it just, felt natural to me and it was easy for me. So, I just took a chance on it and put me in the best position.
What do you think he saw in you that he said, you're a DB?
Just this my size, my frame, physicality, my ball skills. Because, when I was a receiver, I was an athlete, so I was able to, I'm going for the fade ball. So, just my ability to, go and attack the ball, just all those things included. He was like, bro, you need to play DB.
I know, you were obviously at Idaho, electric in the return game, make plays there. Just the growing up and playing wide receiver, how much has that helped you as you made the transition to playing DB, but then also what you're able to do in the other areas of the game?
Major. I think, going from receiver to DB has been big for me because I'm able to understand, I'm able to knock things off of my list when I'm guarding a receiver, just depending on his release, the speed he's running, where he's lined up at. So it's able to help me, be more detailed in my game and, shut off routes and things like that quicker.
So you mentioned Josh Mitchell. Did you talk to him before you came to Nebraska?
I didn't talk to him. He actually didn't know that I got offered from Nebraska until I had just kind of made my top 3 decision on where I was deciding. So he was surprised by it.
I'm sure excited though.
Yeah,
right?
he was for sure. He was like, man, he's a Nebraskan, for real, a black shirt for real. So he was like, man, if you go here, I'm on that, So. It was a great experience talking to him. He talked to me and just, made it clear in my mind just what to expect. It helped me out a lot.
How thankful are you now? You look back at that conversation that you didn't want to hear at first when he said you're a DB. That now look where it got you. How thankful are you for that?
I'm very thankful. It definitely helped me pan out my path clearly. I was able to focus on getting better at one thing. Just playing DB. I was able to get better, and it allowed me to get to that route of success, really, where I'm at right now.
I know you come from a family that has played a lot of football at a high level, but it was a process, right, for you to find your own love for the game?
A little bit. I feel like for me, just being surrounded by that many just ball players, I grew up loving the game. I watched my uncles, all my uncles, my cousins, everybody. We played sports. So, growing up, it was kind of just I see them doing it. I'm going to pick up. I'm good at it. I love it. Who doesn't love something that they're good at? Did
you, though, has it been a process, though, for you to be all in on the sport? Or were you always all in on football?
I feel like, at certain times, just the strain and the sacrifice and everything that comes with football. At times, when I was younger, it's just dang, it's kind of a tough feeling. But I really grew to love the game, and I felt like me and football, we were one. We won.
So then when you are closing out your high school career and not maybe as recruited as probably you believe you should have been, could have been, what was your how did you tackle that? How did you go into, I know you loved your time at Idaho, but what was that process like for you? How did you kind of go into that knowing that, okay, I want to even maybe look for another step moving forward?
I really focused on one thing at a time. I wasn't, highly recruited coming out of high school, but I did get an opportunity to go to this spot. Well, now I'm going to go here and showcase, what I have. And so I think just doing that, it allowed me to, just play free, play fast, and just show my game,
So then at what point did you know that, hey, I'm going to try to maybe take the next step, try to play in the Big Ten? Like at what point did your mind go there that I want to maybe challenge myself at the next step?
I'd probably say sometime like through, it's tough. It really actually I was having a hard time just deciding like whether I was going to leave or not. And I probably said towards the end of my season, really like the last game of my season, really after it finished, I was like, man, like that's when it all settled in. Like, what am I going to do? So yeah, definitely like the end of my season, last game.
So then what made you believe that your game would translate?
Just through practice. I think, we had high level guys that we went against, some playing in the NFL. And so like, I felt like, if I can go out here and compete with them, then I can go out there and compete with anybody else. And so I just think playing through games throughout the season, playing Power 4 teams, my freshman and sophomore year, I was able to just I was playing fast and playing well. So I just believed I knew I could go up and do the same thing.
A lot of people wanted you out of the portal. What were you looking for? How did you land on Nebraska?
The biggest thing for me was just my impact coming in, the role I would play, just trying to affect the team and the defense in a positive way, really. I felt like Nebraska, the way they have their program set up, just very high level. They run it like an NFL program. What you see here is really what you're going to see at the next level. So I felt like, the coaching staff here is great. Nutrition is great. We got all the amenities you need here really to succeed. So it really wasn't a hard decision for me.
Where do you feel like you've grown the most since you've been a Cornhusker?
Obviously I think, I've gotten faster, stronger, physically, but also mentally. My game, just how I prepare, film watching, just really overall just taking care of myself. I think definitely has grown. I'm able to, ice baths, and they really have a lot of things that I can't even name just to help you with your body. So definitely in that area.
What was it like your first time walking through, doing the tunnel walk, running out in front of Husker Nation inside Memorial Stadium?
It was crazy, surreal for real. Just running out, seeing all the stadium packed out. It was like, wow, like I'm really here. Like it's time to do this. It was a great experience. Yeah.
You also got a black shirt. Yeah. What did that mean to you? What did you know about that tradition when they handed you that black shirt?
I know a little about it, speaking with my DB coach before, but really when I got it, it was kind of like, you wear this with pride, with honor. You got to honor this black shirt. It's like you're one of the baddest on the field. And you got to present that. You got to show that. So, I don't take it for granted. Every time I'm out there practicing, I represent that black shirt.
How did it feel when they handed it to you the first time?
It was nice. Great. I was cheesing. Actually, I didn't know. They hung it up on my locker, and I kind of walked in, and I was really, just confused. And then I seen the camera. I'm like, oh, snap, I got a black shirt. So, it was a great experience for me. Just, it settled in like I'm here, and, the process starts.
So I know that they had high expectations for you. You had high expectations for yourself. How have you felt, or I guess how would you evaluate your first 4 games here individually for this defense?
I feel like I've done overall, done well, did good. I do feel that, for myself, I feel like there are plays that I can make that I should have made. So, overall, though, I feel like I've been playing well. Definitely feel like I can step it up, just, reevaluating myself. There's things in my game that I can fix, and, that isn't hard. It isn't like I feel like I have too many things to fix, but, the 1 or 2 things that I need to dial in and fix, I feel like don't know real well.
I always like to ask, this question. Just everybody's journey is different. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, right? But for someone that, might not have the easiest recruiting path, might not be exactly where you want to be, but have gotten to where you ultimately believe you could be, what would be your message to someone like that?
I don't want to sound like bad, but like really, nobody's gonna save you. You got to do it yourself. If you want something, you got to put in the work to go and get it. So it's like, you really got to want it. You really got to love what you do, and you really got to want it. Yeah. That's
awesome. Okay, let's circle back to this week. Michigan State, obviously, lots been made. You got a tough quarterback, tough wide receiver core that you're facing. What are going to be the big keys and challenges for this defense facing Michigan State?
Just playing our game, really. From the front to the secondary, just attacking it like we would any other day, like another practice for us, really, because I think that's where the work starts at. You practice, or you practice hard so that you can play fast in the game. So, defending the pass, defending the run, just everything included.
How ready are you guys to get back out there after a bye week?
We ready. Like, I don't feel like we got a word to describe it. Like, we ready to come out there and compete for real.
How do you feel like this team will respond coming off the first loss of the season and the work that you put in on the bye week? What were you kind of expecting or looking for this team to come out with on Saturday?
We're going to respond in a major way, for sure. No doubt in my mind, nobody is happy with the outcome that happened 2 weeks ago. So we're just ready to come out there and play hard, really.
I know you guys look at every opponent the same, but as a defensive back and, wanting to challenge yourself, liking the kind of challenge, how exciting is that to face, a quarterback that's been able to throw it around a lot and some wide receivers that have made some plays this season? How excited do you guys get in that defensive back room to face this kind of challenge?
We get, very excited, that just means it's more action for us, and we take that on with a smile, pressure makes diamonds. So really, we ready. Secondary, we ready for it.
Awesome, great stuff. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck this Saturday.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Junior defensive back Andrew Marshall here with us for this week's Cornhusker Conversation presented by Woodhouse. Woodhouse has been a trusted partner in your everyday since 1975. Shop for your next vehicle with the home team at Woodhouse and the official auto dealer of Nebraska Athletics.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
It's not a job. I don't start my day by logging in or end my shift by punching out. I don't have a corner office, but I do have a seat with a view. I get to see every sunrise and every sunset. And while I may technically be my own boss, I fully accept that I am not in charge. I'm a Nebraska corn farmer, and there's nothing else I would rather be.
Brought to you by the Nebraska Corn Board.
Let's pause 15 seconds for station identification on the Huskers Radio Network. This is Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. You're listening to Big Red Football.
In Nebraska, the good life means mornings that wait for you. A porch swing or a skyline view. Work that matters and time that's yours. Neighbors who wave. Hey there. Stars you can almost touch. A mortgage that makes sense. More space, more time, more life. Nebraska, the good life is calling. Are you ready to answer? Learn more about living in Nebraska at www.thegoodlifeiscalling.com.
Tackle the toughest tasks on your farm with Brand Agricultural Products. They've got a complete lineup of grain handling and tillage equipment to take you from the preseason all the way to the playoffs or harvest. All their ag equipment is North American built and backed by an extensive network of dealerships that provide support over the long run. Lead the field with Brandt Agricultural Products. Visit Brandt.ca for more.
Here, fall means two things: harvest and football. Just like Nebraska, you run on something powerful. Diesel for your farm, gas in your tank, or propane heating your home. Sap Bros keeps your farm and family fueled. We're kicking off with a big red giveaway. Enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits when you contract fuel with Sap Bros. And when Nebraska wins, you win. Score a free king-size Reese's in the Sap app, whether you're hauling harvest or headed to the game. Sap Bros fuels Nebraska.
Farming is hard work. Between managing crops, livestock, and equipment, there's not much time left to handle financing and loans. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a full-time farmer, an investor, or a young and beginning farmer, we're here for you for all your ag lending needs. Let Dakota Mac help you work smarter, not harder.
Hi, it's Boyd Minray from Dakota Mac. Call me at 402-463-4637. Learn how Dakota Mac products can work for you.
Set. Hike. When champions take the field, they come ready to play. TNL Irrigation understands the value of momentum. Like a Husker drive, there's no stopping. If you live for farming and football like we do, TNL Irrigation has you covered. Check your fields from the game with a remote system, or just enjoy the play knowing our systems are reliable as a sold-out Memorial Stadium. Touchdown! Nebraska born, Nebraska strong. Husker Nation and TNL Irrigation are like no other.
Preparation is the key to success on game day. And like your favorite Huskers on the field, you need to be ready right from the opening kickoff. Cenex has your pregame routine covered. We've got your salty snacks, your sweet treats, ice-cold beverages to wash them down, and fresh tanks of propane to fire up the grill. Fuel your fandom at your local Cenex station. Husker Pride, powered locally.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Matt Coatney back with you on our Dakota Mac Husker Game Day show. Time now for a Nebraska Lottery scoreboard update from the Greg Sharp radio booth. 13 Big Ten teams are in action today, including 2 in the early window. Wisconsin at number 20, Michigan. Last week's Huskers opponent are hosting the Badgers in the Big House, but it was Wisconsin going right down the field on their first possession.
Simmons gets the snap. He'll hand it to Jones up the middle. Jones to the end zone. Touchdown, Wisconsin. Dylan Jones from 5 yards away as the Badgers are first on the board in the Big House.
That's Matt LePay on Wisconsin radio from Learfield. An old school Big Ten drive to start the game on the road. Wisconsin goes 75 yards on a 12-play drive. They capitalized on that 5-yard scoring run by Dylan Jones. But since then, Michigan has tied the game up just as Haynes on a 1-yard scoring run. And they are midway through the second quarter at the Big House. 20th ranked Michigan leads Wisconsin 7-7. Number 22, Illinois at Purdue in West Lafayette, Indiana. This is the Cannon Trophy game. Early on, it was the Boilermakers firing their weapons.
You've got a tight end on each side and a receiver each way. Second and goal at the 1. They bring a man in motion. That's Jackson. There's a bad snap. Brown gets the snap, picks it up off the ground, and he scores a touchdown just the way you drew it up.
That's our good friend Tim Newton on Purdue radio from Learfield that gave the Boilers a 7-0 lead. But 22nd ranked Illinois has rallied and has taken the lead 10-7, and they are driving. They have second and goal at the 6-yard line, and they have just this second scored a touchdown. And so Illinois with a 16-7 lead at Purdue, pending the extra point, 3:52 to go in the second quarter. Kansas State at Baylor in Waco, Texas. The Wildcats have a great running quarterback, and they utilized him early.
Avery with a quarterback draw, and it's wide open. 20, 15, 10, 5. Pay dirt, touchdown, Kansas State. The Wildcats score on the opening possession of the game and have a 6-0 lead with 9:33 to go in the first. Wide open quarterback draw.
Wyatt Thompson on K-State radio from Learfield. They're tied at 10 right now, late in the second quarter at McLean Stadium in Waco, Texas. Kentucky's at number 12, Georgia at Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia, and it has been the Gunnar Stockton show early on. He has scored on quarterback keepers from 7 and 6 yards out. Kentucky did get on the board on a Cutter Boley 29-yard TD pass to his roommate, tight end Josh Caddis. It's 14-7. 12th-ranked Georgia leads Kentucky midway through the second quarter. Number 14, Iowa State at Cincinnati, playing a former Husker opponent. It's all Bearcats early on. They have 8:45 to go in the first half. Cincinnati 24. Number 14, Iowa State 7. Evan Pryor has scored on a couple of long runs for Cincinnati. Boston College is at Pittsburgh in the ACC. 10-0. Pittsburgh leads BC midway through the second quarter of play. Clemson at North Carolina, the ACC debut for Bill Belichick against Dabo Swinney's Tigers, who are unaccustomed to starting 0-2 in that league. The Tigers have already scored more points in the first quarter today against the Tar Heels than they have scored in any single game this season. It is 34-3. Clemson leading North Carolina. They are early in the second quarter. Dabo Swinney went with trickeration on the first play of the game on a halfback option pass and scored on a 75-yard touchdown. My goodness, that game is going to be named the score for Clemson. Air Force at Navy in Annapolis, Maryland. They're tied at 10. They're early in the second quarter. Another Service Academy Army is leading UAB 7-0. They're early in the second quarter. Maction, it's Ohio leading Ball State 7-0 early in the second quarter. Also an early action today, Wake Forest and Virginia Tech getting set to kick off. Tonight, stay tuned here on some of our Huskers Radio Network affiliates. It's top-ranked Husker Volleyball, who blew out Penn State last night. They're at Rutgers tonight, 5 p.m. Central pre-match coverage. First serve at 6 o'clock with John Baylor and Lauren Cook-West describing the action. I have to think, Ben McLaughlin, that Damon Benning might have some mild interest in Shohei Ohtani's mound start tonight for the Dodgers against the Phillies in the National League Division Series, don't you think?
I think his devices will be charged, Coach, just to keep his attention where it needs to be. What an absolute dismantling of the volleyball game last night.
Yeah.
Could you believe that?
No.
I put my daughter to bed, and I came back after the first set and saw the final score graphic of the first set.
I thought you were going to say, and it was over.
Well, no, and I was like...
But it really was.
Somebody got in trouble for getting that number wrong on this. And then I watched the second set and go, yeah, I actually believe that. That's how that first... That was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what happens in a sport like that is so setter dominated without... I mean, Penn State just looks lost since the injury. They have not been able to recover. And you lose an All-American piece like that, it's... Boy, Nebraska, just no mercy. And you heard all the interviews all week, even Becca Alec, who was trying to kind of dance around it.
Yeah, no, she didn't do a very good job.
Yeah,
of that.
She came back to, we're still mad about last year.
Yeah, I'm holding a grudge. Yeah. I think was
that was.
She wants to go kick some butt.
I'll tell you what, they're incredible, and they've got a ton of options.
The service pressure, the defense,
and that's kind of relatively new for Nebraska with the service pressure, right? Because that's always an area I felt like they could get better. But it's high risk, high reward, right? When you want to serve that way. And they might have added that to their arsenal.
That was impressive. More than impressive of what they did to Penn State yesterday. We watched 30 yards worth of penalties on a hit on Rocco Beck, the quarterback of Iowa State just now. Yeah. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there was.
Typically, as you and I said, and they missed the field goal.
And they missed the field goal. That had a Beck got wrecked written all over it.
I like that.
That was, what'd you say real slow?
Typically never a good sign when your quarterback's adjusting his face mask mid-play. Mid-run, yeah. It's not like he was out of the play on a bootleg. No, he was 2 yards past the line of scrimmage trying to readjust his face mask, and then 31 from Cincinnati was seeing red. Yeah. On that play.
And then you don't get points out of it. But Iowa State just not very healthy, and their tackling has been atrocious. The yards after contact for this game right now for Cincinnati are at a high level. And how about the Fighting Illini? I told you the number, and you looked at me and you said, why? Why is it only 7?
I mean, I know the Huskers don't typically play well at Ross-Ade Stadium, but I don't know that applies.
I mean, that was vintage BMAC, right? Like it just did not make it. Why?
Well,
and Illinois answered with 17 unanswered.
They have, yeah. And then it was 7-0. I was like, okay, well, I guess I didn't see this one right, but the show goes on. Since we're on the subject of top 25 teams, I was asked this in the office about Ohio State. Are they clearly the number 1 team in the country?
Yeah, I don't think it's clear. I think it's pretty murky. Now, that defense could be number 1 in the country. I think they're going to be sensational. But, I'd probably right now give the nod to Oregon. Even though Penn State is so suspect offensively, I'm not sure what to make of Oregon's defense. But I do think they're pretty complete. I think Miami, if anybody but Cristobal was coaching Miami, I'd tell you they were the best team in the country because they look the most complete. Now, I say that, and they're going to have their hands full tonight playing their first true road game against FSU. But they look like the most complete team, but I'd probably give the nod right now to Oregon.
What do you think a coaches meeting is like with Dan Lanning leading the charge?
Yeah, I don't know. He's not all the way wired super tight. Right? Like he is a loose cannon. How about his post game? At Penn State.
What was that?
He was just so. He was. I'm like, whoa.
I mean, I've done interviews, as I know you have, with coaches and players on the field. But if somebody was doing that, I'd be like,
he was.
Yeah. Go do something else.
He was pretty dialed. I thought he was just going to lose it, his emotions, and he was excited for his team. And you could tell they play a lot like that. But do you think that's who Dante Moore really is?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't either, but we'll see.
Doesn't play like a freshman.
Yeah, and who's up next for them? Is it Indiana next week?
Yeah, I think it is.
We'll figure out a lot.
Sure.
Apparently, I don't know. Is Illinois as bad as Indiana made them look? I don't think so after the win against SC.
Well, and I think Kurt Cignetti's the type of guy that where if he knows his opponent's down, he's going to make the most of that day in particular.
The proverbial blood in the water.
Make them feel about as down as you can possibly make them.
Yeah, and it happened in a hurry in Bloomington with Illinois. So I don't know.
It almost has your attention. Like when Indiana's blitzing someone like that, you're like, I kind of want to watch just to see how bad he makes this.
We saw what he's capable of.
Yeah.
Zero cares given when it comes to dialing up points if he smells blood in the water.
And especially if somebody makes a singular comment about his team. Doesn't even have to be from the other team that said it. Could have been somebody from National or whatever the case.
It's a life-size chip.
You talk about wires not quite being tight. I mean, I think that guy is probably the president of that fan club, right? I mean, certainly an angsty individual.
Extremely competitive.
24-7 for those curious. As no, Coach gave that score just a little bit ago, but Cincinnati does have the ball back and looking to get over 30 points for the first time, or in the first half as they have the ball again. Tackling not going so well.
It's very optional
for Iowa State
right now. It's very optional.
Things could get ugly in that one. Whether you're a farmer, rancher, investor, or simply a Husker fan, look to Dakota Mac for your ag financing needs. Visit dakotamac.com to learn more. We'll step aside for another break. We got Michigan State ahead here today. We'll dive into the Spartans after this.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Here, fall means two things, harvest and football. Just like Nebraska, you run on something powerful. Diesel for your farm, gas in your tank, or propane heating your home. Sap Bros keeps your farm and family fueled. We're kicking off with a big red giveaway. Enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits when you contract fuel with Sap Bros. And when Nebraska wins, you win. Score a free king-size Reese's in the Sap app. Whether you're hauling harvest or headed to the game, Sap Bros fuels Nebraska.
This is Big Red Football.
The work is dirty and sometimes dangerous. It's the kind that can break your body, and if you let it, your spirit. But while there may be better ways to make a living, you won't convince me there's a better way to live. I'm a Nebraska corn farmer, and there's nothing else I would rather be.
Brought to you by the Nebraska Corn Board.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles. Or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
Nebraska soybeans power everyday products, from Goodyear tires and Skechers shoes to soy-based turf and fire suppressants. These innovations replace petroleum and utilize other components of the soybean, leading to more sustainable products worldwide.
I'm Doug Sadoff, a farmer near Trumbull, Nebraska. Thanks to cutting-edge research, soybeans are now in everything from tires to turf. It's amazing to see how these advancements are unlocking new potential for our crops.
Soybeans are a win for every product and everyone. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
Set, hike. When champions take the field, they come ready to play. TNL Irrigation understands the value of momentum. Like a Husker drive, there's no stopping. If you live for farming and football like we do, TNL Irrigation has you covered. Check your fields from the game with a remote system, or just enjoy the play knowing our systems are reliable as a sold-out Memorial Stadium. Touchdown! Nebraska born, Nebraska strong. Husker Nation and TNL Irrigation are like no other.
Farming is hard work. Between managing crops, livestock, and equipment, there's not much time left to handle financing and loans. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a full-time farmer, an investor, or a young and beginning farmer, we're here for you for all your ag lending needs. Let Dakota Mac help you work smarter, not harder.
Hi, it's Boyd Minray from Dakota Mac. Call me at 402-463-4637. Learn how Dakota Mac products can work for you.
Tackle the toughest tasks on your farm with Brand Agricultural Products. They've got a complete lineup of grain handling and tillage equipment to take you from the preseason all the way to the playoffs or harvest. All their ag equipment is North American built and backed by an extensive network of dealerships that provide support over the long run. Lead the field with Brand Agricultural Products. Visit Brand.ca for more.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Dakota Mac Husker Game Day show. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a farmer, investor, or a beginning farmer, we work hard to find the lending solutions to fit your needs. Learn more at dakotamac.com. Ben McLaughlin, Damon Benning with you. Got college football on around us, which is always a good thing. And ahead of Nebraska today is the Michigan State Spartans, led by head coach Jonathan Smith, also off a bye week. They're off their first loss of the year to the USC Trojans out west, 45-31 USC. And that one, it was an interesting watching that one, Damon, live the first half. You're thinking, there's something going here. I think the first thing that you're going to look at with Michigan State is their offense, certainly at quarterback. He's gathered some relatively valuable experience, Aiden Childs has, and obviously everyone's going to want to point to his legs, over 40 yards rushing against USC, but where does it start with them when you watch them?
Yeah, I think you got to neutralize Childs. I really do. He's playing with good confidence. He's got a big boy arm. Now, we'll see if they can protect him, right? He was running around quite a bit in Los Angeles, and he's got two big-time targets between Kelly and Nick Marsh, two guys that will be getting paid to play on Sunday. So Nebraska's secondary will definitely be tested, but I like the fact that I don't like the fact as a Nebraska fan, but I could tell you with confidence that Childs is playing at a high level.
When Michigan State's going right offensively for them, what does it look like to you when you're watching them?
So balls are delivered on time, right? I think that's what you want to pay attention to if you're a Nebraska fan. If the ball's coming out and he's decisive, that means they're in a rhythm, and you don't necessarily want that. Now, I get it, because the antithesis is, okay, he's making plays off schedule, but that also means that they're not protecting him very well either. So I get it. He's got tremendous poise outside and inside the pocket, but you want to make him be accurate on the move. That's the thing that can get away from him. He's got a huge arm, as good as anybody in the country, but you want to make things difficult, and don't let Frazier and those guys get going in the backfield. Okay, it's they're going for about 4.5 per, and it's a compliment. It's not the mainstay. It's like getting the green beans, or for you the corn. Josh loves Brussels sprouts. I like the meat. It's not the meat of what they do. Josh is like, no. I don't. I totally made that up, but that's fine.
You kind of went your own direction with that, but I'm not here to argue.
But the thing about it is, you just don't want to don't let that run game get going.
I'm glad that you said that, because that means my eyes weren't deceiving me, because I think his footwork does get really sloppy when he's on the move. And when you have a big arm like he has, a lot of times guys fall in love with that, and the mechanics start to go, because you can get bailed out by having that big arm. You saw that in their first drive against USC, where he just uncorked that thing on the run. But I also think with that is going to come some inaccuracy and leave some balls susceptible for Nebraska to go get today defensively. I really think, Damon, they do a great job scheming early. To go earlier, what we were talking about, they do a great job implementing what they want to do offensively early in the game. They've scored on all 4 opening possessions, 4 in a row. It's touchdowns for them, and I think that's a testament to that. And they came out blitzing USC in a lot of different ways, RPOs, and I think that's going to be something that they lean on, knowing Nebraska's going to do what they can, especially with a guy like Dasan McCullough coming off the edge, to really put guys like that in conflict and put that decision. You talked about decisiveness with Childs. They're going to put a lot on his lap today of making decisions, I think, especially in a windy day.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I just was commenting off air. Those flag poles aren't even real high. They're about 12, 14 feet. And those flags are whipping pretty good. And we'll see what happens with how balls can cut through the wind, especially, you and I have seen this 100 times. The wind at Memorial Stadium is different. Don't always pay attention to the flags. It can play tricks on you. And I think you have to play here to get a good feel for it. We'll see what a factor it is, but I'm with you. Schematically, Michigan State has gotten off to some really good starts. But again, just a 57% completion percentage in Big Ten play. And I know he hasn't had a lot of opportunities in Big Ten play, but he's taken pretty good care of the ball, too. Just the 1 interception on the year to go with, I think, the 9 touchdowns. So he's definitely the straw that stirs the drink.
Let's go to the defense next. When you watch them, I probably spent the most time watching their games, their game with USC. Probably watched that one, I think, twice all the way through. There's a couple things that stand out to me with their front 7. They're very, very aggressive. They D-line will get active with their hands, and they give their linebackers the ability to go make plays, and I think that's what doomed them against SC, as there were guys streaking wide open constantly for the USC offense, and you could tell they were trying some different things in the secondary. That is a very gettable secondary for Dillon, I think, today.
Yeah, and I think the low-hanging fruit will be the pass rush, right? They just haven't gotten after the pass rush, but I think the problems for them go beyond the pass rush, and it does start in the secondary, where they've got to get guys to the ground. And you can say the chicken or the egg discussion, and I think it's a valid one. Do you need pressure on quarterbacks to help the secondary function at a high level? But so far, and we'll see if it catches up with Nebraska today, Nebraska hasn't necessarily done a good job of getting quarterbacks to the ground, but the secondary has been really good. So we'll see. I don't think that's sustainable for the Huskers defensively, and it certainly hasn't been good for the Spartans defensively. But I think the mainstay of this defensive bunch is in the linebacking core, and I think there's going to be a little bit of fool's gold for Coach Holgorsen. So I'm hoping that they're careful. You'll want to make plays. A lot of your best players on offense, your quarterback, your wide receivers, but I do think Michigan State is vulnerable on the ground, stopping the run. The wind will not be advantageous to always throwing the ball. Can Nebraska get the ground game going?
And there was a lot of talk from Coach Holgorsen about that and the rushing performance against Michigan. He noted how they popped that 14-yard run on the first play against Michigan, and that was really it on the ground moving forward. And I got the sense that he was kind of challenging EJ a little bit to kind of jumpstart him and I know he's hoping to see some more creases from the O-line and the perimeter blocking as well. I got the sense that he was putting a challenge together for Nebraska to be able to run the ball. And, of course, everyone has been hinting all week about what we're going to see today that the coaches were alluding to this week. But I guess there was a fair amount of direction headed the way of Nebraska's backs this week.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State gave up 290, almost 290 a week ago, 7.2 a carry in Los Angeles. So, listen, that front seven has got to be thinking to themselves, man, we have got to get better on the ground. And I think you're right. Coach Holgorsen alluded to it, and some Nebraska fans and media had fun with, the sarcasm of what he means about something we haven't seen before. I think you're kind of in the neighborhood when you talk about two backs and the opportunity to give the ball to multiple guys out of run formations, which is something I think we can see if in fact, Coach Holgorsen is accurate, and this is a pretty good opponent to try that against.
It's been a couple of games since we've seen Isaiah Hunter kind of emerge and make some plays for Nebraska. That's another guy I kind of have circled, because when you think about what Coach Holgorsen was talking about and being balanced, I think that's maybe more what he means is how do we find ways to get different guys the ball. I kind of feel like we've almost expired our time before an Isaiah Hunter gets involved again.
Wow, that's funny you say that, because if I remember correctly on Monday amongst our crew, Isaiah Hunter was my pick to click. And I'm getting a little tired of you and I always being on the same page with these pregame shows. So let's
just hope we're right.
Let's just feel free to do something. Well, I'm just happy to be on the same side as you. You've been uncanny. Like, if we start charting this thing back about halfway through last year, I don't know. You're on a heck of a run.
Well, let's just hope the run keeps going. Because if we're wrong, then we're both wrong. We both look like idiots, and people are going to find a different pregame.
At least I can blame it on you. That's what I always do anyway.
That's fair. I'll wear it. I'll wear it for the both of us.
Absolutely.
As long as you keep showing up, I'm cool. Game preparation and repetition predict success in winning. Drivers and vehicle passengers who always use their seatbelts will increase their survival chances if a crash should happen. Remember to always make it click from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. The Bearcats have scored again. They're up over 30 against the Cyclones as that continues to happen in Cincinnati. Let's check what's happening around Memorial Stadium here in Lincoln.
Good afternoon, Nebraska fans. As we get closer to game time, we are starting to see congestion in spots heading towards Lincoln. For those of you coming in from the east on I-80, expect stop-and-go traffic near the I-180 exit. Troopers are working quickly to clear a two-vehicle crash at mile marker 402 westbound on I-80. If you're coming in from the west, reduce your speed in the construction zone and then consider taking Highway 77 southbound to Rosa Parks Way. A good game plan always has room for adjustments, so if alcohol becomes part of your game day experience, make the adjustment and have a sober driver lined up. I'm Trooper Brett with the Nebraska State Patrol on the Huskers Radio Network. This traffic report was brought to you by the NDOT.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
If there's one thing Nebraska's known for, it's our beef. And Nebraska soybeans feed a lot of them, and even more pigs and chickens.
I'm Jason Pinky, a farmer near Craig, Nebraska. Soybeans are vital for feeding our livestock, and they're also a powerhouse protein source for people worldwide. Our world needs protein, and Nebraska soybeans are making a difference.
From tailgate grills to global plates, farmers deliver affordable, nutritious protein to build muscle and energy for everyone. Nebraska soybeans, feeding, fueling, and innovating for the future.
This is Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. You're listening to Big Red Football.
Gary's Quick Steak is 100% sirloin and cooks from frozen in minutes.
Hi, my name is Gary Rower. I developed America's fastest cooking Philly steak from my 2 cheesesteak restaurant chains, one of which became a top 100 chain in the country. Faster means more great tasting meals in minutes. I promise you, if you try it, you're absolutely going to love it. My Quick Steak can be found in stores near you or buy online.
Look for Gary's Quick Steak at your local grocery and club stores.
Here, fall means two things, harvest and football. Just like Nebraska, you run on something powerful. Diesel for your farm, gas in your tank, or propane heating your home. Sap Bros keeps your farm and family fueled. We're kicking off with a Big Red giveaway. Enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits when you contract fuel with Sap Bros. And when Nebraska wins, you win. Score a free king-size Reese's in the SAP app, whether you're hauling harvest or headed to the game. SAP Bros fuels Nebraska.
Farming is hard work. Between managing crops, livestock, and equipment, there's not much time left to handle financing and loans. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a full-time farmer, an investor, or a young and beginning farmer, we're here for you for all your ag lending needs. Let Dakota Mac help you work smarter, not harder.
Hi, it's Boyd Minray from Dakota Mac. Call me at 402-463-4637. Learn how Dakota Mac products can work for you.
Preparation is the key to success on game day. And like your favorite Huskers on the field, you need to be ready right from the opening kickoff. Cenex has your pre-game routine covered. We've got your salty snacks, your sweet treats, ice-cold beverages to wash them down, and fresh tanks of propane to fire up the grill. Fuel your fandom at your local Cenex station. Husker Pride, powered locally.
Tackle the toughest tasks on your farm with Brand Agricultural Products. They've got a complete lineup of grain handling and tillage equipment to take you from the preseason all the way to the playoffs or harvest. All their ag equipment is North American built and backed by an extensive network of dealerships that provide support over the long run. Lead the field with Brand Agricultural Products. Visit Brand.ca for more.
It's not a job. I don't start my day by logging in or end my shift by punching out. I don't have a corner office, but I do have a seat with a view. I get to see every sunrise and every sunset. And while I may technically be my own boss, I fully accept that I am not in charge. I'm a Nebraska corn farmer, and there's nothing else I would rather be.
Brought to you by the Nebraska Corn Board.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Welcome to Tunnel Walk Through Time, a segment where we reflect on Husker football games of the past. I'm Camden Cohn. Today, we travel back to November 7th, 2015. Almost 10 years ago, the unranked Cornhuskers hosted the 6th-ranked Michigan State Spartans. The Spartans were a perfect 8-0, while Nebraska had dropped their last 2 games to Northwestern and Purdue, and were just 3-6 on the season. On paper, it looked like this would be one of the toughest tests of the season. The Spartans started with the ball and drove down to Nebraska's 25, but went for it on 4th down and were unable to pick up the first, so the Big Red got the ball for the first time. Nebraska gained just 5 yards and had to punt. The Blackshirts were up to the task on the next drive and also forced a 3-and-out. NU started at their own 35 and went on a 9-play, 38-yard drive that ended in a Drew Brown 44-yard field goal to give Nebraska a 3-0 lead with 7:10 to go in the first quarter. On Michigan State's next possession, Spartans again went 3-and-out as the Blackshirts continued to apply pressure. So Nebraska got the ball back at their own 20 as quarterback Tommy Armstrong looked to lead another scoring drive. The Huskers drove down the field, and on the 7th play of the drive, Armstrong found one of his favorite targets.
Armstrong turns, rolls the pocket right, looking downfield, rolling, throwing deep downfield for Westerkamp. The pass is caught. Touchdown, Nebraska!
A big moment to give the Big Red an early 10-0 lead with just over 2 minutes left in the first quarter. But you knew that the Spartans weren't going to be quiet for long. In just 5 plays, they went 42 yards and were in field goal range. Michael Geiger drilled a 46-yard attempt to make it 10-3. That would be the score as quarter number 1 came to a close. NU had the ball to start the second quarter and moved it just 2 yards before having to punt back to Michigan State. The Spartans went on a 6-play, 57-yard drive that ended in a 34-yard touchdown pass from Connor Cook to tie the game at 10 with 11:35 left to play in the first half. Nebraska's next drive didn't go any better as Tommy Armstrong was picked off, but the Blackshirts responded with an interception of their own from Jonathan Rose. Rose took it back to Nebraska's 39-yard line. The Big Red gained 35 yards and entered field goal range once again for Brown, who hit a 43-yarder to give Nebraska a 13-10 lead with 4:21 left in the second quarter. But Nebraska gave the Spartans too much time to respond, and respond they did. A 10-play, 75-yard drive ending in an 18-yard touchdown pass from Cook left Nebraska with just 14 seconds before the half, trailing 17-13. That would be the halftime score, but out of the locker room, the Huskers looked to retake the lead. 5 plays and 68 yards later, Imani Cross looked to punch it in the end zone.
Armstrong with a long count. Turns, toss sweep, left side to Cross. He steps inside, dives in, touchdown Nebraska!
And you regain the lead, 20-17, with 12:31 left in the third. The Black Shirts were tasked with slowing down this explosive Spartan offense, and once again failed to do so, as Cook found Aaron Burbridge for a 33-yard score and made it 24-20 Sparty. So again, Armstrong and Nebraska needed to respond, but the Michigan State defense picked him off again, this time in the red zone, and the Huskers were turned away. The defense continued to have no answer for the Spartan offense as they went 83 yards in just 10 plays, and once again found the end zone on a 16-yard touchdown pass from Cook. Michigan State led 31-20 with 2:14 left in the third. It felt like Nebraska was on the ropes and needed a score to try and flip momentum. They got the ball at their own 35 after the kickoff and progressed down the field. NU got the ball to the 2-yard line, where Armstrong took it in himself.
Tommy rolls the pocket right, looking, running with the football as Armstrong. He's to the 1, dives, he is in, touchdown, Nebraska!
That score pulled Nebraska within 5 after they failed on a 2-point conversion. 31-26 Sparty with 13:06 to go. That left plenty of time if the Black Shirts could get a stop. Well, they couldn't, as Michigan State went 75 yards in a whopping 16 plays. To make matters worse, the drive took almost 9 minutes off the clock. 38-26 Michigan State with just 4:16 left in the game. So Nebraska, down 2 possessions and running out of time to pull off the upset, started with good field position near midfield as Armstrong led the Huskers down the field once again. He punched it in from a yard out to make it 38-33 with 1:47 left. Michigan State got the ball back, and a first down would have sealed the game. But the Spartans went backwards and lost 3 yards and were only able to take 51 seconds off the clock. That gave the Nebraska offense 55 seconds to make something happen. They'd have to go 91 yards to take the lead, and Armstrong converted on big play after big play, and none were bigger than the 4th play of the drive.
Snap back to Armstrong, back to throw, sets, pass is caught, slipping away is Riley, touchdown Nebraska! Oh my goodness! And the Huskers have the lead with 17 seconds left.
What a fortunate call for Nebraska as they took a 39-38 lead. The 2-point conversion was no good. Michigan State had 14 seconds to try and get in field goal position for the win, but the Black Shirts held on.
Connor Cook in the shotgun, gets the snap, 7 seconds, clock moving. Connor Cook gets hit, throws to the sideline out of bounds. 1 second, game should be over. The game should be over, and Nebraska has upset number 7 Michigan State tonight, 39-38.
With the 39-38 win, Nebraska improved to 4-6. Tommy Armstrong had 320 yards passing and 2 touchdowns through the air. Jordan Westerkamp finished with 143 yards receiving. This has been Tunnel Walk Through Time. Next week, we will travel back to 1975 for a road game at Kansas. Reporting for the Huskers Radio Network, I'm Camden Cohn.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Set, hike. When champions take the field, they come ready to play. TNL Irrigation understands the value of momentum. Like a Husker drive, there's no stopping. If you live for farming and football like we do, TNL Irrigation has you covered. Check your fields from the game with a remote system, or just enjoy the play knowing our systems are reliable as a sold-out Memorial Stadium. Touchdown! Nebraska born, Nebraska strong. Husker Nation and TNL Irrigation are like no other.
This is Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. You're listening to Big Red Football.
Here, fall means 2 things, harvest and football. Just like Nebraska, you run on something powerful. Diesel for your farm, gas in your tank, or propane heating your home. Sap Bros keeps your farm and family fueled. We're kicking off with a Big Red giveaway. Enter to win $1,000 in fuel credits when you contract fuel with SAP Bros. And when Nebraska wins, you win. Score a free king-size Reese's in the SAP app, whether you're hauling harvest or headed to the game. SAP Bros fuels Nebraska.
Husker pride isn't just in the stands. It's in the fuel that gets the Big Red to every game. Thanks to Nebraska farmers and the soy checkoff, Husker team buses now run on clean, renewable biodiesel made from Nebraska soybeans. It cuts emissions, supports farmers, and keeps the Husker pride rolling all season long. Biodiesel, fueling the Big Red mile after mile. Brought to you by Nebraska soybean farmers and the soy checkoff.
Farming is hard work. Between managing crops, livestock, and equipment, there's not much time left to handle financing and loans. At Dakota Mac, we can help you do the heavy lifting when it comes to ag financing. Whether you're a full-time farmer, an investor, or a young and beginning farmer, we're here for you for all your ag lending needs. Let Dakota Mac help you work smarter, not harder.
Hi, it's Boyd Minray from Dakota Mac. Call me at 402-463-4637. Learn how Dakota Mac products can work for you.
The work is dirty and sometimes dangerous. It's the kind that can break your body, and if you let it, your spirit. But while there may be better ways to make a living, you won't convince me there's a better way to live. I'm a Nebraska corn farmer, and there's nothing else I would rather be.
Brought to you by the Nebraska Corn Board.
What does it mean to be locally owned and operated? For Cenex, it means everything. It means that we know if you take your coffee to go or if you like to stay a while. It means we've helped Little Leagues get jerseys and local festivals get funding. It means we know what our communities need. So you'll always leave Cenex with a full tank, full of snacks, or full of smiles, or all of the above. And that means the world to us. Cenex, powered locally.
Tackle the toughest tasks on your farm with Brand Agricultural Products. They've got a complete lineup of grain handling and tillage equipment to take you from the preseason all the way to the playoffs or harvest. All their ag equipment is North American built and backed by an extensive network of dealerships that provide support over the long run. Lead the field with Brand Agricultural Products. Visit Brand.ca for more.
You're listening to Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac on the Huskers Radio Network.
Cornerstone Bank is committed to providing you game-changing solutions for your financial needs. Bank on a solid foundation. Cornerstone Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Back one final time on our Dakota Mac Husker Game Day show. Ben McLaughlin, Damon Benning with you. We have talked about it a little bit, but it's gotten a lot of attention elsewhere, and I feel like we do need to bring it up. And the wind conditions today, you said you just peeked out of there. We talked a little bit about it in the last segment, but special teams is certainly going to have an influence, and I think what both teams want to do offensively today as well. Is the needle pointing one way or the other on who that favors?
Yeah, I don't know. Both have been pretty good. So Nebraska, if obviously with 3 phases and you want to win special teams, but you got to continue to punt the ball when you have opportunities to punt it well, right? We've got to dust off a little bit of our kicking game in terms of punts, and we'll see what happens today. Could there be some trickeration? Could there be some manipulating of the ball with weather like this that could be super advantageous for Nebraska?
Man, it's funny. The last time Nebraska beat Michigan State in this stadium, we were talking about weather conditions, but in a completely different sense. It was snowing. It was cold. It was windy that day.
Yeah. There was a different Rocco playing quarterback for.
Oh my gosh!
It wasn't Beck. It was the old former wrestler that ended up at where did he go? Northern Illinois, maybe somewhere like that.
Yeah, but was it? He was like played for 12 years.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, man. That Michigan State defense was nasty.
Yeah, they were.
They were real.
And
good.
That game was super low. What was it 9-3?
9-6.
9-6.
Do you remember who Nebraska's kicker was?
I almost want to say, was it BP?
Yeah. Barrett Pickering.
Yeah.
How about that for a name drop on Dakota Mac Husker Game Day show?
How about I get all that's a weird stretch for me. It's kind of foggy with our kickers because we kept trying to land the plane on one.
Yeah, well, he landed the plane.
Well, not a lot has changed
beautifully that day. Yeah, I mean, he was in control in the pilot chair that day, and that's all that Nebraska needed.
It was Pickering doing the kickering, not Dicker, the kicker, with the game winner.
You're in your bag already.
Oh man, that's my making fun of Gus Johnson.
We're still 2 hours and 11 minutes.
Chicago.
He was on another level last week. Are you kidding me?
Well, it took me 2 weeks to recover from the East Side Undertaker talking about Underwood. I was like, this is just the epitome of corny.
Unbelievable.
The East Side Undertaker. It's like, what is going on?
He needs to be on like a Hall's cough drop commercial.
Yeah, we've seen him too in our broadcast, and he's a little guy with a boomer.
Well, remember, did he get bit by a spider? And
when he was sitting in the hall? And,
yeah. And I was just like, what's going on?
He's just sitting as a grown-up sitting on the floor.
The weirdest thing, he was just sitting there, and I was like, what's going on with Gus? And someone got bit by a spider, and I'm like that just rolls off the tongue.
I was eating chili in the hallway or something.
Unreal. On that note, how about we give our Brant ground game report? We talked a little bit about Nebraska's running backs and the challenge put in front of them today, but piggybacking off what you saw or didn't see from EJ and the backs against Michigan, what's a successful day today?
I think you've got to go for 140 plus. I really think that's the number. It's a big jump from where Nebraska was against Michigan, and that sans the sack. Without the sacks, you have got to find a way to run the football. And I think the other thing, B-Mac, is got to stop letting guys get to your legs in the open field. It's just taboo as a runner. You cannot let guys get to your legs out in space. And I think Nebraska's coaches really want to see these backs finish runs. Be decisive, finish runs.
What did you make of Coach Holgerson's comments about making Nebraska's offense, and particularly, I would think, he didn't say this, but my indications are that, but particularly the way Michigan ran the ball. He made Nebraska's offense watch Michigan's offense last week. What kind of message does that send?
It tells me that they need to be decisive and trust the holes. Hit the crease. When you see that crease, get in that thing and don't dink around, right? You do the dictating as a runner, because that's a lot of what Michigan did. And they stayed with it. Just trust the concept of the play. And I think that's what they're going to be after today.
Do you think Nebraska's split back set with what they saw is here to stay? Because it seemed like they had a lot going off of that formation in particular. They had repped that significantly. To me, that tells me that's not a 1 week thing.
Well, I tell you what, B, if Nebraska wants to play the long game in this conference, you might as well get started with that philosophy today.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I do think there's going to be a concerted effort to run the ball against the Spartans today. Our ground game report brought to you by Brant Industries. Make sure your ground game is up to speed with Brant high-speed disc for a better field finish in fewer passes. We talked a little bit about special teams. Do you feel like Nebraska is gaining ground on getting that elusive special teams touchdown?
I do. And it had gotten better each week, and I think they've got to continue to stay the course. They'll tinker with a few things during the bye week where I think that they can manipulate some of the return game against the Spartans today. So I'm interested to see it, right? Can you use Archie as a little bit of a weapon if you get bogged down offensively? And if you can, does it change the way Nebraska looks at third and fourth down, right? Because that's an added dimension. The more areas you're competent in, the more questions you have. It sounds weird, but if you feel like you can pin guys deep, there is a little bit more of a conversation in terms of whether to go for it or not. But Nebraska likes to be aggressive. So the back and forth in terms of how competent and proficient they feel they are in special teams may dictate how they call the game.
One last area I want to hit on here before we wrap up and send things over to Kyle. Maybe Nebraska's best test since Sorsby, week one, in terms of dual threat and the different areas in which Michigan State's going to try to get after Nebraska. They feel good about their offense and who they have at the helm today. If they are indeed, Damon, running a lot of RPOs or putting Nebraska with multiple things to defend per play, what do you have to do, and what layer of Nebraska's defense does it affect the most?
So I think the linebackers will be critical today, right, where you'll get that initial push and rush from the D-line. The second-level guys will have to find a way to get Childs to the ground once, he's out moving in the pocket. We know that. I don't know if we knew then. You and I talked a lot about it. Coach Rule talked about it. Not sure Nebraska's fan base understood how good Sorsby is. But since then, he's got 10 touchdowns, only the 1 turnover. He's padding his stats today.
He's going to be on some lists after today.
He's padding his stats today against Iowa State. So Sorsby was a good test. I thought some things that Underwood did gave you another glimpse, but Childs is a little more elusive and better with his feet than Underwood was 2 weeks ago. So Nebraska's going to have to understand that when they're trying to deal with not letting the deuce get loose.
Okay, so what number are you watching on Nebraska's defense today to have a successful day? Who's the guy that is going to?
I'll tell you 2 guys I need to really answer the dinner bell on the second level. I'm going with 15 and 0.
I like both of those picks. I do feel like today with the arm of – there's going to be a lot more trust in Childs to throw the ball than there was in Underwood 2 weeks ago. And I feel like that's an obvious thing to say. But with the windy conditions today, I don't think
he has the arm that can cut that
I don't think it's going to deviate them too much from what they want to do throwing the football. So, again, it's going to be an interesting challenge for Nebraska today. Michigan State brings an offense that they feel good about, 31 points scored on USC in their last game 2 weeks ago. That's going to wrap us up for our Dakota Mac Husker Game Day show. Again, my thanks to everybody that was a part of this one. Thank you to Jess for handling our Cornhusker conversation. Great chat with Andrew Marshall. Thanks to Camden Cohn for our tunnel walkthrough time. And, of course, Josh Hilkeman pushing the buttons, Russ Brown as well. Thanks to all their efforts for getting us on the air here today. Coming up next, countdown to kickoff. It is Kyle Crooks. He has you for the next hour. We are inching closer to kick between the Cornhuskers and the Spartans, about 2 hours from kick from Memorial Stadium. Nebraska trying to get back into the win column after dropping their first contest of the year to the Michigan Wolverines. We're back with you after the game for our 5th quarter show, but until then, Kyle Crooks has you for countdown to kickoff. We'll talk to you after the game.
This is Husker Game Day, brought to you by Dakota Mac. You're listening to Big Red Football.
Call SOS, a trustworthy company since 1950. Their technicians don't earn commission. This equals fair treatment to their customers. SOS is a family-owned third-generation company, and now to celebrate the 75th year in business for a limited